Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BoldChess show. I'm your host, Roland, and with me, the international master, Luis. Hi, Luis. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing very well. I'm very happy to be here with you.
Amazing, amazing. You have recently become an international master, Luis Medarde, and we are so excited to have you here. And we're aware that you're representing the BoldChess website. Can you tell us a little bit about the project and what are you looking forward to accomplish?
Sure. I think, the BoldChess website is great. It has a lot of features that I haven't seen before, and I'm very happy to help people starting in the game I love, and I want to help them to improve as much as possible, and of course, enjoy the game. That is the most important part.
Amazing, amazing. Welcome on board. In this first episode, we will go through and explain a bit how beginners can study chess, which is a very important topic. Many people are still unaware how they should approach this topic. Should they study from books? Should they go online, just play games? It's always a mystery to them, and having you on board will help them and guide them forward in understanding how they should understand these steps in becoming better players and hopefully getting into in shape for tournaments and what's not. And after that, we will go for some tips for beginners, especially for people who are below the rating of 1600. And we will end the show with the two quick blitz games where I will try to compete against you, and then the audience will see how bad I played, and then we will try to analyze how the game ended and what kind of blunders I did for the game to end in such a way. Very well. So, Luis, tell us a bit. What do you think is the best way for people to study chess in 2024 and beyond?
Well, I think right now we have too many resources, too many videos, too many channels, too many things, and it's easy to get confused with all that
Absolutely.
material. So we are gonna try to build up a plan that help people. I have a lot of experience. I have been teaching for more than 10 years,
Amazing.
and well, it sounds obvious, but the first thing is to understand the rules, the basic concept of chess, know everything, get used to it, and all these kind of things. Of course, practice playing games, knowing a lot of tactical motifs and positional motifs. Of course, chess is a very complex game, but there are a lot of things that are the kind of the same or at least very similar. For example,
Mm,
we'll get into it, but let's say um, when a piece abandon his role, you have to be careful with it. You have to make sure you are taking care of your pieces. There are many things that are, well, very important, and you should
absolutely.
master if you want to have very good results when playing tournaments or just when playing your friends or playing online. Um, I think yes, like basically learning how to think and what things you should pay attention to. For example, not paying attention only to your plans and think about your opponent's moves, your opponent's next move, for example, is very important too. Well, basically understanding the rules, practice tacticals and positional motifs, try to think or trying to know a bit about endgame positions, although when you are starting, I think endgame positions is more about how to checkmate, let's say, with the queen, with
True.
two queens, the ladder checkmate,
Some
a lot of things
mating
that,
patterns.
exactly. Not maybe some expert is reading or is hearing you have to study endgames and he's thinking about some rook endgame that is very equal. And when you are starting until, I know, a level of 1600, maybe even more, basically the endgames you have to really know is how to checkmate because yeah, if you don't know how to checkmate well, you don't know how to win
How
a
to
game.
win the
So
game,
I
yes,
mean, this is
and
one of the
some
first things to learn.
pawn structures as well, I believe. Understanding how they can push the pawns at the end, how the king can defend these pawns in the right way in specific formations.
Yes, and of course you have to play games. I mean, you have to practice, you have to get the experience. But yes, I think those are the most important parts. And of course, we talked about the end of the game, but learning how to start the game is also very useful. Besides, there are a lot of people learning how to go for some trap or this kind of thing. So you can get smashed very fast if you have no idea about how to start the game. So
For
at least
sure,
having
yes. Some
a solid
awareness.
repertoire, well, an opening you feel comfortable with that makes sure you are able to play a game without getting into some trick. It's also very important, of course.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then after they cover these end games and a bit of opening book or that fits up their style, as you said, they should also practice by playing actual games. What do you think of playing? Do you think beginners should play long games or more shorter games?
I think, I mean, it's not needed for them to play like classical games because, yeah, like spending 4 hours in a game or 3 hours or something like that when you are starting, I think it doesn't make so much sense. But at the same time, don't start by playing bullet. I mean, something, I think rapid games or blitz games, but like not, let's say, 3+0, more about like 5+5. But I think 10+0 or a bit more than that. So you have
Hmm.
time to think, but at the same time, you don't spend so much time only playing one game. It's ideal. Something around that.
Absolutely, absolutely. They say that longer formats allow beginners to think thoroughly and deeply, and then when they analyze their games, they would know like why they blundered in a specific position, so they can revise back. And when they play fast chess, their mind cannot calculate too many moves ahead, and then the amount of blunders increases drastically for them. And this becomes a challenge for them, which is, as you said, we recommend them to play a bit longer games initially until they get more accustomed to the game, they get more experience, and then step by step, if they like to speed things up and play more action for the fun of the game itself, they can certainly do so. Very well. And there will be also players that always ask questions about how they can improve their rating in the best possible way, how they can push their skills to the next level. And the topic of chess puzzles come out often. It would be nice to guide us about what tasks you think are the most important to boost the rating, to help the players get in line in their games as fast as possible.
I think it depends, of course, on the level of the player, but when we are talking about beginners, first of all, you have to learn a lot of motifs. And for example, you can learn what is the ping and work on that. Make sure you understand it and make a lot of puzzles about the ping. Once you have understood that, or even easier than the ping, just taking free pieces, because there are many things that look easy once you see them, but during the game it's not that easy to keep controlling the whole board and realize you're not hanging a piece. So do puzzles is useful, but I think especially when you are not an expert yet, you have to do puzzles, making sure you understand the motif of the puzzle, you master the most common motifs. Also, analyzing your games, of course, ideally, you can have a coach or somebody that helps you to understand, okay, you are making a lot of mistakes because you are, I don't know, let's say moving the queen too early or just not developing your pieces, or you are missing a lot of opportunities to take a free piece. So once you know what you are, I mean, doing worse or in a worse way, you should work on that and you should try to master that. And solving puzzles, but not random puzzles. And of course, if you can solve puzzles, this applies to also playing or other stuff, but solving puzzles daily. I have a lot of students. When a student goes to a class and doesn't think about chess until the next class, it's very difficult to improve. So you need to be consistent. Ideally, you need to work daily or to practice a little bit. I'm not talking about practicing a lot of time for hours or anything, because I know people have a life and it's very difficult to have time for
It
chess,
can be challenging sometimes.
but do it daily if it's possible, understanding what are your mistakes and trying to learn from them. And of course, I mean, if you can play, I mean, you can watch games from people that play better than you, ideally with comments, that's gonna help. But sometimes the professional chess is too complex for beginners. So although watching tournaments is great, they have to make sure they are watching tournaments that have some commentator, let's say, beginner friendly, because I don't need to know when I'm starting chess that after 25 moves of theory, this bishop move is very important because computer says, I know it's point 0.1 better or anything like that. Just try to understand the principles, try to play logical, play with all your pieces, and think about, yeah, what are your mistakes and try to correct them.
Very well. To highlight the key points that you have shared with us, you emphasized on playing the puzzles and tactics because it greatly engaged the player. You have also shared with us how important it is to play against the players almost at the same level and not just to watch masters at the highest level and try to predict their next move. You have also shared how important it is to analyze our own games because this will give us live lessons of why we did the blunders that we did. And of course, investing in premium courses and finding the right chess coach is also very important because it's greatly accelerate the process when you have guidance from an international master like you. Students can get this kind of live action feedback and they would know exactly what to do next time or what kind of homeworks they have to prepare for the next session. It's good to mention here that you are offering new consultation sessions on BoldChess.com, and for all the viewers they can view BoldChess.com to book your own class with the international master Luis himself. There is also a complete course under the supervision of Master Luis that covers all the basics, openings, end games, and tactics, and much more. You can also check that on the main website of BoldChess. Very well. So it's time to have some practical tips for beginners and how they can get started. In this episode, we will highlight only 4 main tips that you can take home and try to implement. It's like a little checklist for players. Every time before playing a move, they need to do certain set of steps in their heads before they finalize their position and leave the piece on the board. And this is especially useful for players below the rating of 1600, for beginners, for even people who are starting out. The first one is the king safety. Monitor up if the king is safe before making your move. Check if your opponent can capture anything for free, and then check if your piece that you are moving it is abandoning a specific job. Master Luis now will guide us through these specific steps. We will switch to his screen. He will show us live examples on how these 3 things, for how these tips work, and he will also guide us on how we can in our game at least try to predict the next move that our opponent can make. Let's get started, Master Luis.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I had prepared 3 positions to show some typical mistakes the players usually make. This is, well, the first one is about the free pieces, the free land we like to call it. This, by the way, we'll get into that probably on later episodes, but this position comes from the London attack, or well, the London system that is recommended in the course that people can find on our website. In this kind of position, it's a very common mistake to play queen c7 for black here. And, well, as you can see, this bishop that is hiding on h2 is controlling a lot of squares. So it's very easy when we are playing, in this case with black, to miss such a long distance move. And yeah, in this case, we would just like take the queen. And
for free, completely for free.
To be winning, yeah, it's completely for free. I have even seen some games where after some moves like this, the bishop moves, a bit later, black forget
that this is
about the bishop again and plays either bishop d6.
Yeah, that's can be
this move.
This is what we say by board awareness is before throwing the piece, check, analyze for free lunch. Can your opponent get a free lunch out of this? Or
exactly. We'll go deeper into that topic, but looking always for checks and captures before making our move is going to be very important to make sure we don't make many mistakes. Also, I prepared this position, which actually is very common even in top level practice. This comes from a very famous opening, the Rui Lopez, but what I want to emphasize here is this pawn is defending by the knight on c6, right?
Absolutely.
This knight is doing his job. I like this example because it's something that happens very often in, I'm gonna say, beginner play and also in like top player games. Many times the game starts with an opening like this where pawns are on these squares, e4 and e5, and this knight is defending this pawn. Whenever we move the knight, we have to remember the pawn on e5 will be in danger. So many people have learned that when black has a chance, it's interesting for him to go knight a5, knight here, trying to take the bishop, but they forget that the pawn e5 would be abandoned after that, so white takes the free land, thanks to the knight abandoning his role defending the pawn. And now white has advantage already because white has taken this pawn, which besides is a very important pawn because it's a central one. And yeah, white has a very good position already. So before moving our piece, we have to remember to check if that piece was doing something very important. And in case the piece was doing something very important, make sure it doesn't, nothing happens if we move it. In this case, for example, yeah, white takes the free pawn.
This is a very important note indeed, Master Luis, is to always, when we are moving pieces, to scan and run a quick check to remember what was the job of this piece at the first place and why it was on this square and why we put it there initially. It was doing a job, so when we move it away from that square to do a different one, then chances are it's leaving that job behind. And we need to see first if this job is done or not. And if it's not done, like in this case, the knight at a4, it did not finish its job protecting the pawn, and yet it jumped ahead of time and it wanted to initialize an attack of its own, which is which left a completely undefended piece unattended. In this case, where our opponent managed to capture it easily in only one move.
Exactly, that's the point. And earlier I was talking about making sure about checking if our opponent has a check and if our king is in danger. King safety is the most important thing in chess. Sometimes we hear people saying, yeah, I know 3 pawns up, I have a lot of points, I have taken his pieces, but remember, if our opponent checkmates us, we just lost the game. So looking for the king safety is very important. This position comes from a gameplay between grandmasters. This is a theoretical position, but we don't care about this theory right now. The thing is, white is attacking black's queen, so black moves the queen to a6, and here the best move for white is to move this knight to c4, defending white's knight. Why is that? Because in this position, although this bishop on c8 looks very nice and maybe we want to
Innocent.
take it, if we take it, we have to remember all the time to make sure whether our opponent has checks or don't. And in this case, we have to think about what our opponent is gonna play. And we are gonna go even a step further and don't assume black is gonna take the knight. That, by the way, is a logical move, and I mean, black is not losing or anything, but if we really think about the checks, we can see rook e8 check. Our king is in danger. Queen is helping black to attack. And now we only have a couple of moves. Well, we can block with this knight, but black just takes and we are still under big pressure. We can defend with the knight, but then he just takes the knight. We are still under check and our king is really in danger. White is gonna most likely lose the game in the next few moves. And the only other legal move for white is actually the worst one. Queen e2 would lead to mate in one move after
instant checkmate.
Black takes with the queen. Rook is defending the queen. Yeah, we have nothing to do here. Game is over. So please remember to look for checks, both when it's our turn, because sometimes we will have very good opportunities to win games, but also when it's gonna be our opponent's turn, we have to check, does my opponent have any check? Is it dangerous? Of course, for example, if after I take the bishop, black plays, I know, some other check like this, okay, this is not dangerous. I just take the queen. It's not like we cannot allow our opponent to give a check. It's that we have to check them. We have to make sure whether they are very dangerous or not. In this case, the only dangerous check is this one, after which white is just lost. Okay.
It will be a completely lost position. So to summarize the points, the checklist, as you said, Master Luis, is first of all, we scan for the king safety. We see if our move is going to put our king in a direct threat. And then two, we check if we'll give our opponent a free piece for nothing without any compensation. And third, last but not least, is basically we need to see before moving our piece, what was the job of this piece? Is it abandoning a specific role? Is it abandoning a specific job? And if yes, then maybe it's better not to move it and to evaluate the position further and find potentially a better move. As you said, Master Luis, these are three basic rules for people that are starting up in chess. Little bit of a checklist before we make every move. We run 1, 2, 3, and then we try to see if this is actually a valid move in our heads or not. And I think that the better we get in chess for beginners, the more they would be able to make this checklist an internal process in their heads without trying to go through them as in a very explicit way. They can just internalize the whole process in their heads. But even sometimes at the highest levels, we see grandmasters that sometimes they don't really run through this basic checklist, and they would be so immersed in deeply analyzing their lines, forgetting some superficial variations that may align with the tips that you have shared with us today.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing these positions and little puzzles. Very insightful.
Thanks, hope they help people to understand what is important to think about, what they should keep in mind, and well, to do a good job by avoiding some typical mistakes.
Absolutely. Well, now it's time to play some chess. I will try my luck against you. I will try to comment as well while the game is going. Maybe beginners will be able to resonate with me because I'm a beginner chess club player myself. And then after the game, we will run this kind of post-game analysis to see what went wrong and how maybe I failed to follow this little checklist that you have showed us today, and how we can implement it more effectively in a practical match. Okay, so we are back at the board with Master Luis. I will try to we'll try to showcase a game together, and we will try to implement these little checklists. At least I will try myself to implement this checklist, and then after the game, Master Luis will show us what were my mistakes, where did I blunder, and how the game ended. This is a 5+4 format in order to give me some time to comment on the position while I'm playing. I will showcase my lines of thinking, so I will think loudly in this position so that everyone will be able, all beginners will be able to reason with me and see how I'm trying to go about things. So I'm starting the match with pawn to d4. This is a popular first move. It basically opens the bishop. The pawn is protected by the queen. It's such a popular one. I will go with bishop to f4, and this is part of the London system opening. It's very simple, very easy. Basically, the bishop is eyeing on the pawn on c7. And this can give us a little bit of traps as well if we align the knight on b5 later on, which is a line I'm going to try to play against Master Luis. The point being that Master Luis detected this little threat here, and he knows that if I jump the knight to b5, I will have the knight and the bishop eyeing on the same square, and that can be prevented easily by pushing the pawn. So my plan didn't work out, but that's okay. I will just continue development. I will push the pawn forward to e3, protecting the pawn, and opening space for my bishop to move forward. Master Luis also developed his bishop forward, and in this case, I'm thinking I have two options. Either I will place my bishop I will move it from f1 to d3, or I will develop the knight. Generally I prefer to develop the knight first. So I'll go with the knight to f3, and we will see what will happen. Master Luis also is developing his pawn and opening the path for his bishop. In some lines, I feel like the bishop may be able to reach the square at b4 and activating this spin, which is something normally I don't like to see. So I'll prevent that from happening by pushing my pawn to a3 to prevent this pawn, just to avoid any kind of potential pins that may result in this position. And as we see, Master Luis pushed on the pawn forward to open up the position and challenging the center. Because the way things are, the center is currently a bit equalized, and by opening the position, he will achieve a very good. He might achieve a very good position, and not to mention that the pawn can be pushed forward as well to c4, and that will prevent my bishop from jumping to d3, which is also an important square, and he will solidify his position. As a beginner, I would like to castle my king as soon as possible, and to do that, I will need to move my bishop. I will move my bishop forward initially, and I will attack his bishop. I might not take it. Not entirely sure if I should take his bishop right away or not, but we will see. He took the pawn. I will take his pawn back. My objective here is to castle my king, put my king in at a safe square. My bishop is protected by my queen at the moment, so the position seems to be fine. I will push my queen forward. I will capture the bishop. So far, the position is holding. And that's good to see for me that I'm able to hold the position so far. I will castle the king, put it in a safe square, and let's see what can I do. And in this position, I was happy to see my pawn eyeing on the b4 square to prevent this knight from jumping, the bishop from pinning. We have the bishop moved to e7, and that will allow Master Luis to castle his king and also move it to a safe square. For me, in this case, my lines of thought would be either to move the knight forward to e5, or to move the rook to e1, start centralizing my rooks. I would opt for the knight first and see if Master Luis will capture my knight or not. He did indeed capture my knight, and now I'm put up in a position where I can capture with either of these two pieces. I'm not sure if I should capture with the bishop or with the pawn, but maybe with the pawn is more irritating because I will challenge his knight, and that will force his knight to move somewhere. Maybe he will move it to h5, maybe to g4, or maybe he will just put it at d7 without challenging my bishop. In this case, I will centralize my rooks. I will move to my rook to e1, adding an extra layer of protection to my pawn. Because this is a pawn island, I cannot protect this pawn with another pawn, so having two pieces defending it is generally a good idea, at least for a beginner like me. I think Master Luis will castle his king if I were to predict his next move. I was correct. Very well. I will then centralize my second rook, and that should give me a solid position. Now, this is an irritating move. He's trying to attack my pawn. Always when your opponent moves, ask yourself, what is he trying to accomplish from this move? I mean, on the surface, it looks like he's attacking my pawn, but maybe there's other motives of this move. The easiest way to protect it is by pushing it 2 squares forward. He's challenging my pawn, and the idea being is if I capture his pawn, he will introduce more pawn islands. I will have 3 pawn islands instead of having just 2 pawn islands. And the more pawn islands I have, the harder it would get by the end of the game. So I need to figure out what to do here. And if I left the pawn unattended, he will just capture the pawn, he will attack my knight, and he will open the file for his rook. And this is also not a very pleasant outcome for the position. So my last move, which was centralizing my rook, I will either need to push my rook back to b2, maybe to protect the pawn, or I need to think of something else. I will try at the moment to challenge his, I thought of challenging his queen, but then there might be some tactics involved. I'm gonna try this line. Again, this is also something to mention that my bishop is doing a job here protecting the pawn. If I moved it, I will block the rook and I will leave my pawn unattended, so it's a bad idea. What I will do is I will just protect the pawn with my rook in this case. Okay, he ate anyway because it's a good idea, and we have here 2 attackers as well, 2 defenders defending this pawn. So chances are, if I capture his pawn, my rook is not as valuable is much more valuable than his bishop. So my protection was for nothing. I cannot capture back anymore. It took me some time to realize this, and it's over now. I'm going to capture anyway. And he's going to capture with the bishop, I think, unless if he does not want to introduce a pin, or he will capture with the bishop. And he has now a nice pin, pinning my knight to my rook. What I will try to do in this position, I will try to leave my knight as it is. If you can give me a few more seconds. Addition. Okay, thank you, Master Luis. That will help me get in shape. My idea is simple here. I want to double up the rook on this file, hoping that I would get something out of it. But now I run into a problem that 2 attackers are attacking my knight, and this is a bad news for me. I cannot escape the knight because my rook will be lost to the bishop. I have to go back with the bishop to protect my knight and add another layer of protection. But I think Master Luis saw that ahead of time, and he would keep stacking up the attackers. This is what differentiates beginners from professional players. They know how to keep on the attack going. They stack, they bring in more pieces to the party. And again, I'm having the same problem. If I escape with the knight, my bishop will be lost, and I need to figure out a way to defend this position. I will try to protect it one more time with my rook. Hopefully that will help. But then I run into a nice fork. Exactly, this is a very nice fork, forking my rook and my queen, and that means my idea of protecting the knight did not work out, and this is just I lost to a simple tactic. I moved the piece thinking that I'm adding another defender, but in reality I'm not defending anything. I'm just introducing new problems to the position. This is how the position explodes from being a simple position from a simple defending position to being running into a completely losing one. So in this case, I'm going to I need to move my queen, of course, otherwise it will be lost. I will try to move it to a square where I can present some kind of, my rook is lost here. I have to capture back his queen. His queen is much more powerful than my queen. And I'm still having these issues here. This spin is still ongoing, and I can't possibly defend this position anymore. I will try to undermine his position in a way, but that I'm not really seeing any possible move here apart from. I will try a simple activation of my rook, and now we are running up with this issue where Master Luis has 2 rocks and 1 knight, and he just needs to convert his position at this point. I'm just going to continue playing this game till the end, just to see, so beginners can see how to checkmate a king in this position, how to convert that little advantage. And now Master Luis will slide his rook till. Oh, he did not, because there is a back rank check. I need to monitor out for moves like these, so I need to give my king some room to breathe here in this position. And now it's just a matter of converting the position. I think Master Luis will slide. I thought he will slide it to A2, but it seems A1 is the way to go, because my rook is now pinned and I have to exchange rocks. And now it's just a matter of time before he can push his pawn. I will try with my king to close in towards the pawn. In this case, usually I try to sacrifice my pawns and hoping I would end in a stalemate position. That's unlikely to happen, but I will try to give it a shot. I think here he will. Yes, exactly. We have a checkmate pattern here in play, and that's it. Mate in 2. Wow, that was fast and amazing. I managed to hold at the beginning, and then it went downhill with how you stack the attackers. And my fork, I think that when I lost that match. So let's analyze this game and see how beginners can actually benefit from this from this position.
You played very well. You played very solid. It's one of the advantages of knowing your opening, knowing how to develop the pieces. Even for a top player, it would be very difficult to win with black. Although finally some small inaccuracies happened, but at the beginning, yeah, you played great. Well,
thank you, Master.
You're welcome. As you were commenting, the game started with this opening, which is called the Jobava London, and it's quite dangerous for black because there are some ideas of knight b5. Suddenly, knight gets to c7, giving a check. At the same time, white is going to take the rook next. So it's really, really difficult for.
This is a position that I managed to win many times at the club level. People ignore this position completely, and they think they can just consolidate somehow, or they can push the knight to a6 later on. It's not a big problem, but then they run into some kind of positional issues throughout this position, and that positional problems it unfolds later on in the game, and then they think, oh, maybe this knight should not have jumped initially on this square from the beginning. If we had prevented it, it would have been a much easier way to go about it.
I agree. I think, well, this move, and there are different moves for black, but this is one of the easiest. I think about what you are trying to do, so I try to stop it. Also, it's easy to think, as you were saying, like if the knight comes here, black can try to defend. I saw one example, like
yes,
I can defend
I have
here,
seen this many times.
But later, sometimes, let's say you play a normal move, I just keep developing my pieces, and suddenly I realize, okay, I am in trouble here. Well, in this position, maybe this move would also work, but I think the point is clear. Like, it's easier in this case if you just stop white from playing knight b5, then if you have to pay attention all the time to that threat, that at the moment you make a mistake, you would lose the rook and your king would be in danger. Well, it could be really bad for black. So I wanted to stop that. Well, I think during the next moves, we both develop it correctly. You develop your pieces, I do the same. Okay, in this case, I want to develop this bishop. Actually, I was trying to go bishop before pinning your knight, but you did stop it. So yeah, I just kept developing here. I could develop my bishop to e7 and castle what would be very normal. I decided to break first, but both moves were fine. You develop your bishop and try to trade bishops. I decided to take the pawn on d4. One of my ideas was that a beginner or an actual beginner would maybe take here, and in this position this would be a mistake because I can take your knight. So I am already up a pawn, and I'm still threatening your pawn on b2, your bishop on f5, so you will get into trouble, but you made the right move. You took my pawn, and now, okay, I traded bishops. Maybe I could play differently, but I think all these moves were very normal for both. My castle, well, I need to castle. I delayed it a little bit, but in this case it was not super dangerous because there were no checks. This file was closed, so I didn't think you could take advantage of it. You play knight e5, which is a good move. I was a bit afraid of you ruining my pawn structure, or maybe this knight being dangerous, so I decided to take. You took with the pawn, as you said, attacking my knight. This is a bit annoying. I wanted to go here to d7 because in other squares, well, here you can take it. On h5 it might get trapped. Usually knight on h4 is not a very good idea.
Absolutely.
So I went here. You bring the rooks into play, what I think is perfectly normal. And I wanted to bother you a little bit to attack, so I decided to develop my queen, connect the rooks, attack the pawn. And this is difficult to say, it's very complex, but maybe before was the start of your problems. I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm not saying this is losing for white, but it's a very small thing, a very small inaccuracy. But what I thought is you give me a target, although most of beginners' games won't be decided because of these very small things. Maybe you can just defend it with the
rook back. Yeah, this would be a much more accurate move.
If you allow me to take it, I'm gonna play just a kind of random move. If I take it, you still have some chances to counterattack. It's true I take another pawn, but you take my pawn on the 7th rank, you attack the knight. If I move it, it depends where, I mean, my bishop is hanging. In this particular case, this doesn't work because of this.
Because there is a fork.
but still somehow trying to make that idea work or just defending could be better. What I thought was, by playing before, as I said, you give me a target, I immediately attack it, but also the only open file that I have, and I'm gonna try to use in the future, or at least that was my plan, is the C file. Once you move the pawn, knight on c3
It was doing its
is still
job.
defended, but I can try to double rooks in the future, maybe use my rook and my queen and try to attack the knight. If you move it, I attack the pawn. So you give me a target, still a very small thing, not a big mistake, but at least I had something to try to use. And now, yeah, if you push the pawn, you have to be careful with the pawn e3. If you take the pawn e3 is still a bit weak, so you decide to defend. I took, you take back, and now I was afraid because usually pinning our pieces, taking the pawn with the bishop when my bishop will be pinned is super dangerous for black, but I tried to calculate and I thought it worked. Luckily for me, you don't have a way to exploit it, but for example, if you had knight a2 or a move like that in a way that I cannot take it, I would lose the bishop next. Or at least I don't see a very good way to defend it. You can try to attack with more pieces. So in general, please be very careful when allowing your opponent
to
pin your pieces.
introduce pins, especially for beginners. They might not be able to navigate these pins in a very accurate way.
Exactly. And now you play rook b2, what I think is a good move, trying to double rooks and taking advantage of the pin. But as soon as I got
Too
the
slow.
chance,
It's very slow.
Pin my bishop, and I even pin your knight. So, or well, I tried to use that pin. Your knight was already kind of pinned because of the rook on e1, but when I play queen a5, I'm attacking it. I see I'll try to bring more pieces, as I said earlier, using the c file to attack the knight. You defend, I attack it, and now the only move I saw, still, I liked my position, but the only move, I think the only chance was knight b1. What was a very difficult move to make because you are retreating a piece, and this is the only square that works for the knight because if you move, let's say, knight to e2 here, for example, I take the bishop, but by playing knight b1, you defend the bishop. So if I take, you can just take back, let's say with the queen, for example. Black is up a pawn. I think black pieces are well placed, but there is still a long game to go here.
The position holds, absolutely. The position can hold in this case.
However, after rook b3, once I play knight c5,
that
of
was
course,
game over.
Yes, at beginner level, things can happen. Black might blunder some background checkmate in the future or something, but I think I had everything under control here. So you play queen b5, which is probably the best move. I took your rook, and I'm ready to take the knight next. When you took my queen, I can take your queen with 3 different pieces, but I take advantage of having the time to escape with the knight to make sure you don't take it. I still maintain this pin or this attack. Again, you had maybe a little chance here by playing knight b1, defending the bishop, but still I would be a rook up, and at our level this would be decisive.
Yeah,
I don't think
in time. Yeah, I cannot. There will be 2 rooks standing at the 7th rank, and that's just the 2nd rank. In this case for black, and these 2 rooks usually are just totally unstoppable, especially when you have a knight on top of that and a passed pawn. So and my brain somehow turned off after the fork, and that happens usually. You blunder a position. This is something as well to mention for beginners, is that they should not turn off their brain after they see a blunder on board. They should keep going, because I'm currently playing against you. You are international master, but when beginners are playing with each other, the one guy might blunder again some other time, his opponent, and he might be able to equalize somehow. They shouldn't give up just at the first blunder they see on board. Because chances are their opponent might not be able to fully capitalize on these blunders at their current level, and then they can still enjoy a fine game later on. Amazing, amazing, Master Luis. That was a nice game. It was like a perfect example how players should stack up their attackers. They should watch out for the pins, how to maintain the pins, and how not to blunder a piece or blunder a fork in this case just because you need to defend a piece. Instead, you should find like more useful resources, which is in my case. I needed to find this knight movement to be one which kind of holds the position in place a bit, which will prolong the game a bit more. Thank you so much for this valuable insights, for showing us how the game went, how to exploit spins, and how an attack should work as well against the London system for black. That was really splendid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Master. I would like to remind the viewers that if any player would like to book a call with Master Luis and have his games analyzed, like how this game is went, he can pinpoint your mistakes, he can show you your weaknesses. Make sure you visit us at BoldChess.com and book your consultation session with Master Luis. He will be more than happy to show you what you need to work on. He can work with you on several levels depending on your experience, and he will be able to give you like actionable guidance as how you see in this game. We're going to play the second match now. Master Luis will take the white pieces, and I will try my best to comment like last time. Then Luis will point out how the game went, and we will do a little post analysis. Let's get started. I'm going to play here a little defensive position. I'll play a bit of just developing pieces to a sensible squares. White has options here. He can advance the pawns, or he can take. In this case, he decided to advance the pawn. I would like to move my pawn to e6 in this position, but then my bishop will be locked. So what I do like to do, I like to push my bishop forward first and then develop the pawn. This is one idea. The other idea that it swims in my mind is to push the pawn to c5 and undermine the whole position. But there's lots of tactics involved, and since I'm playing against international master, probably this tactic will not play out very well. So I will move on, play in a classical fashion. I will just develop my bishop first, and then I will push the pawn. And then the next step, I will push the pawn. This is a solid position for black if I can maintain it. White is trying here in this position to attack my bishop, which has been newly developed. I don't see much of good squares here apart from pushing it backwards to g6. Very well. I would like to pin the knight in this position, and maybe that will give my king some space as well, so in case I need to castle in the future. And now here white has a very good idea. He needs to trap my bishop completely. I still have the square at e4, but generally speaking, I'm not very much happy to exchange my bishop with the knight. So I will start by capturing the knight first. I will check the king, and then after he captures back with the knight, or with the pawn, but probably with the knight. I think it has to be with the knight. Very well. Then I need to find a way to give a square for my bishop to escape. And that would mean I need to push my h7 pawn to h6. He's attacking me anyway. He wants to push my bishop to a very passive square. I have no choice. I have to push it, or else I have to exchange my bishop with his knight, and my pawn will be exposed. This is something I would like to avoid. And now here we see how Master Luis is able to bring more and more attackers, and basically he wants to capture my bishop and make my rook move, and that will prevent me from castling. This will really limit my king safety. My queen cannot move to g5 because of the bishop, and the only way I can see it now for me to progress forward is to work on castling on the queen side instead of the king side. I don't think it's possible right now to castle on the king side. There is an idea that's coming to my mind to push my pawn from f7 to f5, but then I would allow the en passant to happen, and my position will open up completely. And with the queen on the line, with the rocks coming in, it might be very, very challenging. I don't think I can calculate deep enough to navigate this position. For this reason, I'll start working on my queen side instead of the king side. I'll start with the knight first. Then I will activate an auto move in case he captured my bishop. That was an auto move. And you can do that on lead chess. You can just capture automatically if you are aware what your opponent might move. And here in this case, I have to go back to protect my rook. The pawns are being pushed forward, and I need to find a way to hold this position. My knight is very passive at the moment. I would like to centralize it and move it to a more active square. And that will also eye the square at f5, which is exactly what Master Luis is thinking. He needs to open this position. Eating the pawn might be an option for me, but then the pawn storm that is coming my way might be too hard for me to stop it. I will need to see what can I do. And leaving this pawn is not a good idea because the pawn can get pushed forward, and then I will need to capture it. Then the rook might slide to f1. This might give me lots of trouble. What I would do in this position, probably I will try to take the pawn first. And then I will, now pushing the pawn forward can be an idea, but then I'm not very sure what to do if he pushed his e-pawn from e5 to e6. Really trying to figure this out, and I'm thinking of whether I should move to f6 or not. Allowing this pawn, though, is very dangerous. At the same time, leaving it to go to f6 is not pleasant either. Very well. I think I'm going to go with this line, try to block this structure, allowing the pawn to move to a6. Then I will just escape with my knight, move it to a different square, keep the position as closed as possible. Now he doesn't want me to castle on the queen side. He wants to basically delay this my development. Is keeping my pieces restricted as much as possible. I'm just moved my rook to defend. His bishop moved on forward to take control over more squares, and I'm really in a tight position here. My knight cannot do much. It's totally passive. My second knight here, I need to reallocate it to a better square. I found the c4 square to be much better than what it was doing at at b6. And now I did see this this idea. Jumping it forward is not going to get me anywhere, although I will be attacking the queen, but then my knight will be trapped, so it's better to move it backwards and just try to hold this position as much as possible. I will be happy exchanging, of course, because I'm so restricted in this position. I can't do much. And now here I think I will be able to cancel queenside in the next move. I don't like the idea that my king is totally blocked in this situation by the pawn. He canceled queenside himself, and now I have a nice check with my queen. And the idea being that my queen will attack the pawn and my knight is attacking the pawn. I'm not very sure what would prevent me from implementing this tactic. I also have this idea of checking the king at a3, but I don't think that will result in anything because he can just slide his king and then my attack will be for nothing. I would like to go for this little tactic and see if it's going to work out. So I'll check the king first. He might challenge my queen or he might escape the king. If he did escape the king, then I'm going to capture the pawn. This is, for me, this is at my level at least, I'm a beginner, I think this pawn can be captured. The king moved forward. I need now to think. Before capturing a pawn, you need to see if there is anything. Is there any tactic I'm missing? Is there any problem? Can these rocks slide, for example, from d1 to e1? And then they will have this kind of strong pawn here that can be pushed in the future. Can he double the rocks? Can he do anything with the knight? Is there any fork in place, like as you saw in the last match? I rushed in and I took something. I tried to defend a piece, over-defend a piece, while forgetting that there might be a fork. But I don't see anything of any urgent tactic here. Since his queen is stronger than my queen, because he's the international master of Naz, usually queens of the master are much more stronger. So I would like to take it with the queen first, and if he took it, he won't exchange queens. Very well, he won't exchange queens. He protected his pawn. He saw my little attack here. What can I do? I think the best way I can continue this is I need to move my king and castle queenside in order to get it away from this from the center of the board. And then I need to find a way to continue my attack going forward. He's attacking my queen now, and I have only two options: either escape my queen to a passive square like h7, or move it forward to a square where I don't think it's going to result in anything. The queen, I might run into issues, or my queen might get trapped. So I would prefer to play passively and just move it backwards. I don't want to run into queen traps lines. International masters can trap queens very easily. I'm not interested. My objective is to prolong the game. The queen now is trying to take control over this long diagonal. It's a good thing that the knight cannot jump forward and attack me right away. The rocks have to break free somehow in this position. My knight, though, might have a square at f5. If I move it forward, is protected by the queen. And then later on, I can push my rook forward, or I can start with the rook first. one of these two things. I can also look into centralizing my rocks a bit more before starting this idea. But then, as we said from our checklist, if I move the rook to e8, I will leave this square at d6 unprotected, and the queen might slide in, and that might pose a problem. So I would like to go with the knight first, but then the pawn might get pushed as it is, and I might have difficulties stopping it later on. What I would like to do then, I would like to start opening my queen and changing this structure a bit. I will move my rook to e8, the other rook, and hopefully that would not pose any issues. Very well. Master Luis here is starting an attack on the king side. He has to undermine my position and the pawn structures. I need to act quickly here before it's too late. The only way I see it now is I need to find a way. Before dealing with that attack, I need to deal with this centralized pawn. I will try this little move to f5 and see if this little idea will work out. Basically, what I'm thinking is I'm opening a bit the line for my rook. My knight is protected. It's in a better active square as long as it's not introducing some bad movements or tactic. Oh, there is a tactic in play because he sacrificed his knight, and I don't really see that tactic, unfortunately. He will eat the pawn at g7, and probably that is very bad because the queen is eyeing at the square at c7, and that is going to make the position very difficult to defend. It's a checkmate in one, in fact. And although I might be able to hold it for a little bit, but I think the position will collapse in a while. Still, I would like to take the bait and see if I can defend it somehow. It's good to showcase if I can do this. And I was wrong, actually. Oh no, it was correct. So there we have here a little bit of a checkmate in one in place. And I am thinking if there is any way to defend this checkmate in one. Probably there is no way to defend this checkmate in one. I had an idea of pushing the rook forward, and then I remembered that there is the pawn, and I can't possibly prevent this checkmate from happening. I can push, of course, I can delay it, but I cannot prevent it. Let's try to delay it. In this position with a queen, Master Luis can convert this position very easily and quickly. I will try to hold the position, just not to give up completely. I will try to hold as much as possible. There will be a passed pawn coming in, and the knight will join the party. He needs to rotate the knight to the back and then join it forward. It's just a matter of time before he can rotate this knight, and I'm just trying to hold the position in this case. But there is new pins introduced, and I don't think I can do much. I will try to attack. The king side is aiming for a. Now this is a very popular way. You check the king, you make the king move, and then you eat the rook. This is a nice fork. we are just here showcasing the end of the game. There is a checkmate pattern here in play, and Master Luis is activating it. And this is it. Amazing, Master Luis. That was a very nice match. Although I did see the mate in one, I just for some reason my brain tricked me into thinking that I can actually somehow defend it. I think I saw a move that wasn't there, like a ghost move, and I was totally tricked by the position, and I felt it was really a good thing to showcase this mate in one, and it's really nice to how, despite the fact that Black managed to hold a little bit initially, eventually under pressure the position cracked, and due to the inactive pieces of Black, he was kept on his passive position for a long time until White find a way to break in.
The game it was very tough. You played very well.
Oh, thank you. I think I didn't play well at all. I don't know.
Well, this is the Caro Kann, a very solid opening. I mean, there are many options for White here. I decided to push. White's idea here is to gain some space and make Black's life a bit difficult. For example, by not allowing knight f6 in this case, and well, putting some pressure on Black's position, but at the same time later Black has chances of breaking. The bishop, as you played bishop on f5, is very well placed, and I decided this was a pity because I decided to break some principles here, but of course, like 90% of times we have to just follow the principles. Sometimes we can do things that might seem a bit strange. In this case, I realized this bishop here is very strong, and before you are able to consolidate and develop all the pieces, I try to attack the bishop, and I wanted to trap it at some point, putting my pawn, let's say on h5, this pawn on f3. Bishop couldn't have any square available, but you played very well. Here you realize it, so you forced me to take a decision. I was actually about to take with the pawn. Finally, I decided to take with the knight. Taking with the pawn seems a bit strange at first. My idea was, if you make room for the bishop with this pawn move that happened in the game later, I wanted to attack it with the knight and use my knight on the king side. But finally, I decided to hold my pawn structure and just take with the knight. And I felt this position should be quite good for me. Here I try to trade the only active piece you have, and I wanted to not allow your knights to get into very good squares. For example, this square would be great for a knight, but I have my pawn on g4. This square would be good too, but I'm controlling it. The same with the f6 square. Like, I am taking a big risk here by pushing a lot of my pawns, and it could backfire. But at the same time, I'm trying to, annoy you and don't allow you to develop.
Yeah.
In this position, for example, all the time I was very careful with your queen not coming to h4 because my rook is defending that square. And I would say here you made a slight inaccuracy. I thought you should take my bishop instead of developing the knight. It's going to be very similar, but I want to point out something that might be useful for beginners. After takes, later you develop, and it's not very likely to be the best move, but you still have the chance of castling short. However, I want to remember, after you develop, I take your bishop, you take, I attack your rook. Your best move is what you played, rook h8. If you pay attention, you can see the pieces are basically in the same places. Like my queen is on d3, your rook is on h8. But you won't be able to castle because you have already moved the rook.
Absolutely.
So you cannot castle short, you can only castle long. Most likely, you should castle long anyway, because my pawns are very advanced on the king side. But still, if I were you, I would keep the chance. And in this position, before you are able to castle or before you are able to finish your development, I want to push my pawns, try to open the position, and try to attack your king. 97 was a good move. I push. I thought maybe about developing the queen and castling long, but I would push those pawns too. So in general, I was in a very aggressive mode. You play 97, which is good. I push, and this position was very tricky. The pawn e6 looks great, but and actually I think it's a big assessment for white, but at the same time, if I don't manage to break, the files are closed, you manage to castle long as happy in the game, and it's not as easy. So here you defended well, I think. I kept attacking. You all the time before making your move think about what I'm trying to do, so you defend. I develop the last piece I needed to. At the same time, I thought I was controlling a very good square, well, a very good diagonal with a lot of important squares, and not allowing you to develop the queen. But you did very well again. You attack my pawn, you are ready to develop the queen and put pressure on my position. And here I had to take, although I really didn't want to, but I didn't want to lose the pawn at the same time that you are attacking with both pieces, and I'm only defending with the queen, so I decided to take. Here, I realized I might lose the pawn if I castle, but at the same time, this pawn is a bit weak anyway. It was difficult to avoid queen f4. At the same time, I had to watch out for queen h2 attacking the rook, for maybe queen a3 at some point. So I decided,
absolutely.
okay.
I was comfortable that I can hold the position well here, is thinking of like my queen can slide somehow and can pose some issues.
Exactly. No, for me it's clear. Last moves, I might make some inaccuracy or something because my position was feeling good, but now it was not as easy. I decided to give up a pawn. I thought I had some compensation for the pawn as you haven't castled yet, and well, after queen e2 I defend my pawn. I still have more space, I have good pieces, so although losing a pawn...
Master Luis, I want to ask you a question here. In this case, should we capture with the queen or with the knight?
I think you made a good choice here. First of all, under positional terms, trading queens is good because you are up a pawn, and if like one king is not completely safe, it's yours. So trading queens is very good for you. Besides that, if you took with the knight, I had thought about playing rook df1, attacking the queen with the rook, and once you move it, I'll take the knight for free. Absolutely. So it was a very important move, taking with the queen and keeping everything together. Like your king is still safe, you're about to castle, I cannot avoid it. I didn't want to trade queens, as I said, so I moved my queen, defending the pawn at the same time. You play long castle, and I have to do something because I'm a pawn down. Your pieces are starting like to get
consolidate somehow. Black is consolidating, and he's trying to ask for some. He's trying to pose some problems now. The queen is out. The king is mostly in a acceptable square.
Yes. So I thought, okay, I have to attack. I had to do something. So I want rook df1, attacking your queen. You played queen h7. It's good. I mean, you don't have many squares. I thought about queen h3. I hadn't seen exactly how to win, but at the same time, your queen seems, well, too exposed. So I think queen h7 was the right move.
I feel with my inaccurate play, my queen can get trapped if I moved it to a wrong square. I wanted to play as safely as possible in this idea.
And now, I thought I don't have a way to break, but with queen h2 I control a lot of important squares. As you pointed out, d6 square, for example, if you move the rook, would be weak. And I thought, okay, I kind of control many squares. Later, I'll try to either join the attack with the knight. One plan, a bit slow, but I had was knight a4, knight c5, even knight d7, and queen b8 would be mate. This is very slow, but okay, I had that plan in mind. At the same time, I wanted to push my pawns to create some open lines to attack your king. And that was my plan. I am a pawn down, I have to attack. It's a bit slow, but at the same time, being a pawn down here is not as bad as it might be in other positions, because before you are able to push the pawns and promote. That is one of the biggest advantages of being a pawn up. You still have to work a lot. So yeah, I thought I had some attack here.
And your pieces are way much more active than mine as well. You had all the pieces are very active participating in the game. All my pieces are passive, just defending and holding the position instead of, trying. They're all like pushed back. It's like they just want to hold in this case instead of trying to pose as much problems as possible.
Yeah, here I thought I have two open lines, as I was saying, so I was planning to push my pawns. And luckily for me, just before you made the move, I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I missed a knight f5, but I just realized at the moment before you played it, yeah, everything was under control. I had seen that idea before. I can sack the exchange, well, I can sack the rook for a knight, but the pawn on g7 is not defended anymore, so having active pieces pays off here, and yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. Moving the knight was the movement. I decided eventually here to go with the capture. I lost a knight anyway. And I was like, losing a piece in this position is really big, and it's very difficult for black to come back in the game. And the position was so nice as well for showcasing how this mate pattern works. And I felt like I lost the game anyway, so let's just showcase this mating pattern. It's so nice, and many viewers will appreciate to see how this king will be mated in a couple of moves from now. I try to delay it, of course, in some way, but it was just like a matter of
actually
time.
Now, if viewers have been paying attention, they can remember in some of the examples I saw it, there was a bishop on e2. It was earlier in the video, but the bishop was very nicely controlling all the diagonal, and I said it was easy to miss. Maybe that had something to do with you missing this pattern, because it's difficult to realize how strong this queen is. And now you try to survive. I made an inaccuracy here. I regretted my move. I think I should just take with the rook.
Maybe with the rook, yes. Maybe with the rook would be
very hard
the fastest
way.
way.
You could give up some material, maybe, but okay. I thought both moves are completely winning, but to be honest, I expected you to just go king d8, which was terrible. And yeah, I would promote, you take, and here we have the ladder checkmate. Well, you can block, but
yeah, it will be
controlling
just
this rank and the queen the last rank. Anyway, I was, of course, completely confident this position is easy to win once you have a lot of experience, as is my case. And yeah, now just try to collect some material, attack black's king. White has more pieces and better pieces, so it's easy to attack. And yeah, sometimes
once the knight joined the queen, they become unstoppable.
Exactly.
That was really nice to see.
It's easier to win by promoting pawns. Sorry.
So what was the black's best move in your opinion, Master Luis? I know I blundered moving the knight and moving the knight forward to f5. It was a big mistake. So what was the best move here for black?
To be honest, I'm not completely sure. I think your position is difficult, but I was thinking it's slow, but I'm trying to attack on
king side.
Yeah.
Something like a6 would work.
I'm not sure. I think if you go a6, it weakens these squares a bit. So I would go a5 and try to include my knight in the attack. Here you can see a good mating pattern. So I thought you should try to join the defense with the queen, which is very far. And the move I was thinking about was queen h8, which seems very weird. But the point is, I want to somehow bring the queen to the defense. If you go queen g8, I was ready to sacrifice my rook. well, both my rooks to try to take your queen. So I was calculating, I'm not sure if it's the best move, but something like queen h8, trying to go queen f8, move the knight, and play
And
queen
try
e7.
to slide the queen as fast as possible to the king side.
Exactly. If your queen was, let's say, here on c7, my attack would be much less strong. So that would be maybe your best chance. Still, I think white has a good attack and has good compensation, but yeah, I would still have to work a lot before winning the game.
Before converting the point. That was amazing. We showcase a Caro-Kann defense here as well, and for black, and it's such a nice opening. This opening Caro-Kann can transpose into other positions as well fairly quickly, depending on how black and white respond to each other. It can open up. I tried to analyze a line at the beginning. If we can just scroll up one last note before the end. I tried to showcase here when you push the pawn forward to e5. I try to analyze that pushing the pawn forward. Yes, my c pawn to c5. What do you think of this position? Is this valid in chess or just like my? It's not really.
No, it's completely fine for black.
It
Even
is fine.
top grandmasters played nowadays. The idea is black tries to fight against white center. This is a very interesting strategical battle because white might be a bit overexpanded, but at the same time he has grabbed some space. So if black is able to destroy white center, black will have the advantage. If white is able to consolidate it and use it to, for example, restrict black pieces, probably white is who want to have the advantage. In this case, white might defend the pawn or just take the bait and take the pawn.
Or take the pawn.
But
right.
After taking, both pawns are a bit weak. I mean, there is a lot of theory here, but for example, knight c6 attacking the pawn, e6 attacking this other pawn, knight d7 even attacks both at some point. Like white pawns become very weak, and white really needs to know how to handle the position. After taking, otherwise he's most likely gonna lose both pawns and get into a very bad position.
Right, very well. That was amazing, Master Luis. Thank you so much for being here with us today on this call, and for showcasing all these lines, for guiding the viewers as well how to convert positions, how to stack up attackers, how to use the opponent's mistakes and blunders. That was really amazing. We will catch up in our second episode, hopefully next week. Until then, I wish you a great day ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Master Luis. Thank you. All the best.
My pleasure.